What's up, nerds? In today's video, we're going to be going over how to simply set up a multilingual WordPress website. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to make sure you get notified of my weekly WordPress videos. And on top of that, if you're looking for a caching plugin for your WordPress site, I highly recommend checking out WP Rocket. It is my favorite caching plugin for WordPress. And if you use the link in the description, I get a small kickback, but you pay the same price. So if you're interested in that, check it out. All right, so today I have just a default WordPress set up right here, and it just has the 2021 WordPress theme installed. And so to kind of just talk about this as I get into the dashboard here is that I did a little bit of work at my job on kind of figuring out how we wanted to tackle multiple languages on our site. And in this case, it was like a United States and an Australian version of our sites. And so there was a lot of like, should I go custom with this? Should I use a plugin? A mix of the two, and ultimately kind of landed in the latter. So what I did was I ended up using this plugin called Polylang. And a lot of you have heard of Polylang. It's a pretty popular plugin, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to kind of create content and pages that are localized to different languages. Like you have an array of languages that you can pick from, and then you can assign pages and posts and even translate specific strings and templates to fit that language that is currently selected on the site. And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk through really quickly how to do the kind of the basics of this type of setup, and how to just get a couple languages on the page, separating them out, and also showing kind of how they interact with each other a little bit here and there. All this is just a high-level overview of how to just kind of get started with it. If you want me to keep going on to how this might work in more of like an advanced setting, let me know and we can do more videos on it. But since I've already kind of like activated the plugin here, and I've kind of set this up already, but what it's asks you to do is it lets you pick kind of some languages out of this dropdown. You click add language and it lets you kind of pick a default. So right here I've got the United States English and Mexican Spanish. And then it asks whether or not you want to translate media. So if you have pictures that are being shared between like a US post and a Mexican post, you can translate the title tags, alt tags, all that good stuff once they are translated. So that would be really helpful as well. It then asks you to kind of like create menus, check out your pages, or upgrade to Polylang Pro. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that exists in Polylang Pro that I am really excited about, but it's also very sad because it's behind the paywall. But it's still worth mentioning, and I'll mention that here in just a second. So what we've got here is we've got two languages, English and Spanish. And if we check out our posts, we can see that we have just one Hello World post. And let me zoom in here. And we also have the Mexican flag over here with a nice little plus sign. So what the general idea of how this works is that you would have your default language set up, and this Hello World post is set up in English. And if you wanted to translate that, you would just click this little plus button. It would bring up the WordPress editor, and you could say Hola Mundo or something like that. And down here at the bottom, it says that the language is Espanol, and it is a translation of the English Hello World post. So if we hit publish, we can now view that page. And what we have up here, if we can check out the URL, is /es/Hola Mundo. So where did that ES come from? So let's take a look back here in our languages and look in our settings. So Polylang gives you a lot of different options here. The Pro version gives you even more, and I'll show you what it does specifically here on the URL modifications here in just a second. But what this does is it lets you kind of pick how these URLs are going to display. Now you have to have pretty permalinks activated. If you don't know what that is, settings, permalinks, post name, this one right here. This post name setting right here, you do save changes, and now you have pretty permalinks. So if we go back to our settings and URL modifications, it says that we want our language to be set from a directory name. So it's like / the 2-letter language code / the post name. Now you can also have that set up a couple of different ways. The other way is like by like a subdomain or something like that. I have always been a fan of how it is right here /en/my-post. And then so you also want to hide the URL language information for the default language. You don't want everything being prepended by your default language like en/whatever. Like you want it to be the secondary languages that are set up. So that's how it's set up there. Or you can also like prefix it with /language so it's a little bit more clear there. The Pro version has things like being able to share slugs and translate slugs on posts and stuff like that. Which I really like, but it's behind the paywall, so it's not something that I'm going to show off today. Detecting the browser language. When the front page is visited, set the language according to the browser preferences. So if they're just wanting to go to yoursite.com, but they have Spanish as the browser set as the default language, then they will be redirected to your Spanish homepage. And then we just talked about the media thing. Synchronization. The synchronization allows the option to maintain exact values or translations in taxonomies and page parent of meta content between translations of a post or page. Pretty self-explanatory. And then the Polylang WP-ML compatibility mode. A lot of people like WP-ML. I did not even give it a chance. I kind of gravitated right towards Polylang right away. And we'll go over string translations here in just a second. But what also it does is if you have the Pro version, you can also set up the home page for each of the languages to just be the the 2-letter locale code. So in the case of Spanish, you would want it to be /es and nothing else after that in the home page. But let's kind of take a look at how that fares out if we were to create a new homepage. So if we go to our pages, we have our sample page. Let's just create a new English page. We're just going to call this English Home. Publish. And then if we go back, we're going to translate that into Spanish. Spanish Home. And we're checking down here. It's the English Home translation, and it is in Spanish. Publish. Now let's just say Spanish Home right here as well. Probably should do the same thing for English Home, just for good measure. English Home. Perfect. So if we go back, we are going to go into our settings and reading here. Set our static home page to English Home. Hit Save Changes. And if we go, like we don't have the /en there, we're getting just English Home. But if we do /es, we would expect to see the same thing, but just be es. But because we don't have the Pro version, it makes you have the slug of the page that you just created for the Spanish home page. So we have Spanish Home, but we're doing /es/Spanish Home, which I'm not a huge fan of. But with the Pro version, you can get rid of that, and it just is /es. So from here, you can, like I said, translate individual pages. And the kind of cool thing about that is we have Hello World and Hola Mundo, right? So they are kind of attached in Polylang. So let's jump into kind of how that works in, like, if you were looking at this from a developer perspective. Why is that good? So, like, let's say that you have a Spanish browser and you land on the Hello World page. Somebody links that to you, and you want to be able to send them to their correct place. Well, we've got a bunch of functions that are now open to us. So if we go into our footer, and we have kind of where the powered by stuff is, let's just delete that real quick. We have PLL, Polylang, the languages. And what this does is this creates a list of all the languages that are available for this site. So if we go back and visit the page, so if we go to Hello World, go down to the very bottom. Now, if you look down here, it says English and Spanish. or Espanol. So if we're on Hello World, and we click, well, I want to be on the Spanish side, it's going to take us right to Hola Mundo, and it's going to have /es/Hola Mundo. So that's really good. They're attached. So if it knows that you're on the English version of the page, it's like, oh, I have a translation for this in Spanish. If you want to be on the Spanish side, I can direct you directly to that translated post. So that's really helpful. Another thing that I think is kind of cool, and they have all sorts of these kind of functions that I think are really helpful, is that you can translate, like the stuff that you can actually touch back here in, the editor back here. Like all this stuff can get translated because you're editing it directly in the Spanish translation page, or the Spanish translation of the page. But what about things that exist inside of the template? Like we kind of had that powered by section down there at the bottom, and I deleted it. But if we, back this up, it said proudly powered by, WordPress and all that kind of good stuff. So let's say that we just had like a welcome message, like it that just said, hello, howdy, partner, something like that, If we save that, refresh, we now have howdy partner, but, we go to Spanish, it still says howdy partner. If we go to English, howdy partner. Like, how do we translate those things? Well, I kind of alluded to it back here, is that on the languages, there's these things called string translations. So anytime that a string pops up, it knows that, oh, there's an English version of it and there's a Spanish version of it. And these kind of things can live inside of WordPress. Now you can kind of see it says otro sitio de WordPress, where it used to just say, just another WordPress site. I actually changed that before the tutorial. So if you go into, the Spanish version of our page, up at the very top, up here, it says otro sitio de WordPress. And if we go to English, it's going to say just another WordPress site. So how do you go about changing this howdy partner? What's the correct way to do that? Well, what you would do is you would go into functions.php or something like that, and then you would check to make sure that a function exists. And we're going to say PLL register string. And so register string, all that does is that makes the string translations, it creates another string translation entry in this table. So for example, we have our welcome message is what we're going to call it. That's the first parameter. The second parameter is what you want it to be by default using your default language. So then if we, refresh this page, all of a sudden we have howdy partner. Now it didn't have hola compañero there. It would say howdy partner on both sides, but in my kind of dry run of this tutorial, I put in hola compañero. So that's what it should say anytime that we're on the Spanish version of a page. So if I could do visit site, it should say howdy partner. And now if I go to the Spanish site and scroll down, oops, because did I put that in there? Footer? Nope, because it's just a howdy partner. What I meant to put in here before refreshing is a PLL_E, and then you put in the string name. So if we go back and now we're in Spanish, we have hola compañero. Go back to English, it's howdy partner. So both of those are now tied to what we have set up here in our languages. So this string translations is now running that particular piece of our template. So you can imagine how this would go into other parts of your site, things that are not like in-page content that are handled through like the block editor and things like that. So another thing that I wanted to show off, and this will be the last thing that I show off before letting you all free, is, well, okay, so like I need to be able to grab, posts by a language. If I'm going to create like special templates and I'm going to pull in special related posts, I don't want to have related posts that are coming from English pages or anything like that. If I'm on the Spanish version, I want to pull in Spanish posts. And that's incredibly easy with kind of this setup. And I'm not going to create like a whole like related post widget. But what you could do is, let me just change my notes here so it's the correct version. So what you would have is you would have something where you could just get the posts, and it has a lang argument thing that you can pass into the array of arguments. So then you just give it the slug of the language that you want to handle here. And then, if we were to refresh this, it's only going to grab one post, even though we were to, I probably should comment that out if I'm going to be exploring the backend here. So here we actually have two posts. We have Hola Mundo and Hello World. But if we visit the site and we only wanted the English post, we only got one English post back, which is exactly what we're looking for. And that is the, where is the post title? Oh, Hello World right here. So that's exactly what we're looking for. So we could create, related posts based off of that. And, same thing if we were to change this up for Spanish. So if we did ES, now all of a sudden we have Hola Mundo instead, right there. So that's really nice. But you could also, there's tons of different functions. One that I use quite a bit is PL get, or I think it's current language. So that's whatever slug, or for whatever language that we're on, it's just going to grab that and inject that there. So since we're on the English version, we are getting Hello World back. And if we go to Spanish, then we're getting Hola Mundo. So it just knows where we're at and things like that. So, and this also kind of works with like taxonomies and things like that. So this can be applied to all sorts of different types of queries and things like that. But with this this information that I've shared alone, you should be able to get a pretty robust multilingual website. And I've only shown off 2 languages. You can have lots of different languages and have string translations for all sorts of things inside of your templates for all the different languages that you could possibly need. Long story short, I found this kind of helpful when I was going through this. I think that this is a great plugin if you want to check it out. It's not sponsored by them or anything. It's just something that I used at work and wanted to share it with you all. So if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, toss me a comment in the down below. I'd like to thank my patrons. We're doing another video. I'm doing it this week on batch processing data with WordPress. And so just a couple ways to avoid like timeouts and just kind of some ways to handle larger tasks and things like that. So if you're interested in more advanced tutorials, check out my Patreon as well. Link is in the description. But anyway, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next one.